Yo guys, how's it going? My name's Umzi and welcome back to a brand new video. This time around I'm doing the exact same thing as the last video where I show you guys how to play a specific champion in a specific role. This time around we're doing Kallari in the jungle. As you guys can see, the affinities that I do go for Kallari in the jungle is Beast Hunter and Ace. However, I have seen a lot of people go for Rogue and Beast Hunter and Rogue and Ace. So like those three are basically the main ones that I've seen most people go for and what affinities in my opinion work as Kallari. Now, as you guys can see straight away, we realized that we're on the light side. Therefore, I tell my whole team that we should go in for an invasion. This is because it puts me quite ahead because I end up normally getting the enemy red buff. We either get a kill or like something happens. The reason I say this purely because we're on the light side is because the max amount of enemies that can be on their red buff will be 3, because this includes the mid laner, this includes the off laner, and this includes the jungler. Sometimes it's normally 2, sometimes it's just the jungler. However, if we were on the opposite side, we'd have 4 potential people that we had to have a fight with, meaning there's more chances of us dying because it's a 5v4 and not a 5v3. Now, normally invasions I wait until 1 minute 20 because they start doing the red buff at 1 minute 20. That is very good because normally they end up taking a bit of prior damage to the red buff and they end up taking the red buff much lower than what it is. We instantly see the Gideon and he starts to back off, the whole team starts to back off. We focus the buff and I know I can just affliction it to get the buff. This gives me almost level 2 straight away and we have stolen a Kallari buff and he's already behind by 1 buff, which is quite a lot if you actually think about it. And this actually will help me in the future get way more farm compared to the Kallari, which you guys will see when we go for the enemy blue buff. Now, first thing that I want to talk about when it comes to Kallari is her pathing. Now, there's 2 different paths that I normally take. Kallari is a champion that has her main power spike at level 6 purely because of her global ult. Now, this does mean that I attempt to normally full clear my camps and just power farm until I hit level 6. This is because it's always very, very, like, the second you hit level 6 as Kallari, it's just incredibly OP because then you can just start having global presence around the whole map. And level 6, you also normally end up finishing 1 item. So it's like your main power spike does happen at level 6. However, the second pathing that I do take sometimes as Kallari is if they have no stuns on the enemy duo lane or if the mid laner isn't a Gideon, I normally do end up ganking at level 3. To get level 3, you normally go for red buff into both your camps. After your 2 camps, you have level 3 and the enemies normally have level 1 or level 2 depending on how fast you complete your camps. Now, after this camp, I do try and look for a gank on right lane. However, they do end up seeing me. So I end up not going for the gank because, well, obviously they're just going to back off, which they do end up doing. Now, after this point, I do recommend you counter jungling a little bit because obviously taking your whole red side and then taking your whole blue side isn't going to give you level 6. That's why after taking the enemy red buff, I went for my red buff, and then got level 3 at my second camp, which was my first white camp. Now, the reason why this was so good is because I had level 3 without even having to complete my third camp, which normally doesn't happen. Now, talking about her overall pathing for the whole game, you basically just want to complete your perma-farming and go in for a gank every time your camps are clear. Now, over here, I did see this steal very, very out of position. He does end up turning around and going for a gank once again. He doesn't realize I'm here, and I end up managing to kill him, and I'm pretty sure I get away. Now, at this point, I realized that the enemy Kallari maximum, she should be on her blue side purely because of us taking her red side. So she should have completed her red side, started her blue side. However, her first camp should have respawned because I was the one that initially took it. I try to look for a gank, don't see one, and then I end up seeing Kallari, try to do something to the Kallari, nothing really happens, I believe. And I think I end up backing. Now, talking about backing, the first thing is items. Items is very, very important as Kallari because a lot of people do build Kallari wrong. Now, a lot of people do question why in the world do you build Kallari with Bear Alarm, and honestly, it's a very, very overpowered item on Kallari right now. That's why it's just very good. Tank Kallari is genuinely working these days, and that's why it's just so good to build Bear Alarm or U-Mantle or anything along those lines. Now, at this point, also you can see pathing-wise, I realized the enemy Kallari is forced to back because she can't take any more minions because of the damage I dealt to her. So I look for her blue buff and I end up taking her blue buff as well. This gives me an insane advantage because not only have I taken her blue, but I also took her first red buff and I took my own red buff, plus my blue buff is still alive. So I ended up getting all 4 main buffs in the whole north and south jungle. And I ended up getting both of them. I back and I get my first item when the Kallari probably has around 600-700 gold because she hasn't taken a single buff camp, she hasn't gotten a kill, she hasn't gotten an assist, nothing. Now, the first thing I do build on this Kallari, considering the enemy team is somewhat squishy compared to other teams, such as having a Grux or having a Muriel, for example. Narbash is mediocre when it comes to tanking. The only tank in their team right now is Steel. So I end up deciding to go for more of a damage build, which in my case would be Hunts. You always want to go Boots first as a jungler, purely because you want to have that speed that helps you with your ganks. Now, as Kallari, the only 2 boots I see sufficient for her build would be either Wraps if you're going for tank Kallari, or Hunts, which is 90% of the times you're going to go for damage Kallari. The point of Kallari is to be an assassin. You want to always just find an enemy, kill him, leave the battle, like without anyone managing to kill you. That's basically the point of Kallari. Also over here, as you guys did see, I had a deep ward in the enemy side, so I do end up going for a counter jungle play. This does end up making me... another reason I did this was because I saw the mid prio, which meant that the Gideon cannot rotate, and if he does, he ends up losing a lot of farm. Over here, we do end up making a play because I can see we still have prio mid lane. So I'm like, okay, Belica has time to rotate before the Gideon does, so let me go in for the fight. Steel starts to rotate before my Grux does, but Grux is very, very close behind him, so it's not that big of an issue. So we end up going for the play and try to get the kill. I take an insane amount of damage because I was already half HP. I tried to do a combo and I tried to get out, but I end up managing to dodge the Kallari E. And I just end up trying to run away, and my 2 teammates appear before the enemy 3, and they end up killing one of them very, very quickly. Now, at this point, I should be running away. However, the better play is to me just stand on the sides and just spam my daggers to help my teammates slow the enemies down. The Belica has very low mana, so I know she can't do this alone because Steel will kill her if she doesn't kill him first. I try to go for the Steel. We end up getting the Steel, but the Gideon is a bit too much because he had time for a rock. Our Grux ends up missing his grab, and that ends up letting me die. However, it wasn't too bad because at this point, we got a 2-for-1. Plus, I'm pretty sure they end up killing the Gideon. So at the end, it was actually a 3-for-1. And I'm pretty sure Grux got 2 of the kills in my... This does mean that my mid lane and my left lane are both ahead of the enemies. Therefore, they should be winning their lane 24/7. So I can just focus on my duo lane. If I do that, we should win the overall laning phase. Now, talking about the rest of his build. Rest of her build. Kallari, you want to be building Satchel into Crossbow, in my opinion. Crossbow isn't actually a recommended item on Kallari, but attack speed goes a long way with Kallari. Kallari's overall essentials is, I think, D-Blade and Fire Cannon, which I completely agree with. I normally end up going Crossbow into D-Blade into Fire Cannon. However, I do end up also building some sort of tank, which is not recommended with Kallari. However, you do want to go some sort of tank. It makes it so much easier. Now, over here, as you guys can see, when you're going for a gank as Kallari, after you have your all your abilities, you want to be going in without letting them see you, and so starting off your Q before you can even do anything. Now here we end up killing it. I should have retreated a bit earlier just because there was minion advantage for the enemy team, and they ended up getting way more damage to us by minions than we could do to them. Our ADC does continue. He unfortunately does not get the kill, but he does end up dying to minions. Good thing is he did get executed and the enemy team did not even touch him. Now, next thing I want to talk about is, also when to use your ult, as you guys did see. A big play with Kallari's ult is the fact that you can always go back to base and ult to the enemy, which lets you have, you could say, 2 lives in one fight, if that makes sense. Obviously, you want to be using your ult whenever your team needs it. So, like, if an enemy escapes and you're about to, he's one shot, you do end up wanting to ult the person and try to run away and get the kill. But you can be using your ult in terms of, you're in a fight, the enemy, you're both backing with very low HP. If you somehow stop, if the enemy person gets greedy and he stays in his lane, you can back and ult back in. Now, next thing I do want to talk about when it in terms of when to use your ult is late game. Late game as a Kallari, you should be able to take out the enemy ADC with no problems at all if they are alone. In a 1v1, a Kallari should always beat the enemy ADC. So a good play late game would be to use your ult as much as you can when you know the enemy ADC is alone, kill them and leave the fight. That alone is amazing because it stops the enemy ADC's farm, it stops the enemy ADC from being in fights, and it means your ADC is getting ahead of the enemy ADC, which late game is your main win condition. Now, weaknesses to Kallari. As you guys do know, Kallari's biggest weakness is a damn item. If you put down a sentry ward, or if you put down a normal ward, not a normal ward, sorry, a sentry ward or a scrying ward, those two can see Kallari and a Radiant Pulse as well. All three of those items do see Kallari, and the biggest counter to that would be to put on Bay Alarm. The reason why Bay Alarm is so good is because you can literally just stand next to the item, next to the ward, and it destroys it automatically while you're in invis. Otherwise, you would normally need the help of a friend to take out the ward while you are in stealth. What you can also do is have Radiant Poise as a jungler, which I highly recommend because it does help you with ganks and getting rid of wards when you don't have a teammate to take care of the wards. So yeah, you can always just use the Radiant Poise and get rid of wards. Now, the reason I go for this buff over the helping the team is because I want to stay ahead of the enemy Kallari. And to be honest, I do believe I should have maybe, like the team should have backed earlier because we knew Kallari was in that area. But overall, wasn't that big of a deal as our only person to die was the support and not our ADC. Over here, I know I can't take out the enemy because there's like 2 or 3 of them, so I just try to retreat as much as I can. I think I do manage to do so. Now, talking about mechanics for Kallari. If you guys did not know, the biggest and the main mechanic that you should know as Kallari is that she has an insane jump that you can do if you time your E and your passive. Normally, people use their passive, so you want to double jump and use your E. This is not the best way to use Kallari's mechanic. As you guys just saw here, I tried to do it, completely failed because it needs to be, you can't hit a wall or anything. So what you do want to try and do is that you want to use your E to go forward and then double jump at the same time. I think I do end up doing it here. I'm not 100% sure, but you guys will see me do it eventually. You want to use your E, then your double jump. This is insane because it actually lets you go an insanely far distance compared to a double jump, then your E. So let me repeat that. You guys want to use your E, then double jump instantly. So you literally want to press E, left click, and spam your spacebar as much as you can, and it makes you go an insanely far distance. You'll see me doing it once or twice in this video. I did try to do it right there, but I tried to jump the wall. As you guys can see, if the wall wasn't there, I would have gone a very, very large distance away. Now here, I do end up seeing a very low steal. Unfortunately, he was under tower and it ended up messing me up. I got the kill, but I did end up getting shot down. Not the worst, but not the best scenario. Now, talking about your ganks. Your ganks, the best time to gank is always when you know the enemy team does not have a ward. What you could do is show up in the enemy lane, make sure they don't have any wards, go jungle one camp, and then come back. And when you come back with your invis, you always will manage to get a gank. And 9 times out of 10, you actually end up getting the kill. Now, talking about his abilities, Kallari's abilities, I end up building very, very wrong in terms of abilities this game. I maxed her right click before I maxed her Q. You always want to max her Q before you max anything. As you guys saw there, I did the mechanic once again. You always want to max the Q first because this increases the time you're allowed to be in stealth. This increases the damage that you do when you come out of stealth. This is her biggest part of her kit. It's the bread and butter of her kit. And I end up building it wrong, but you do want to max your right click second. So Q into right click into your E, but obviously prioritizing your alt out of all of them. Over here, I think I ended up getting the kill purely because she took 1 or 2 tower hits, but yeah, she took 1 tower hit and I ended up getting a double kill, I believe. But yeah, as Kallari, once you take out the enemy ADC, a support should not be able to do anything to you, especially when you have a completed item. I didn't even have a completed item and I managed to do a 2v1, even though I believe the Sparrow was she had a few kills as well under her belt. Now, talking about the next part to Kallari, her playstyle. She is an assassin. You guys, unless you're building her with tank, there is literally 0 point of going into a team fight being the front liner. Normally, you want to have something like a Grux or a Steel in your team when you're playing Kallari on offlane. So, you want them to go in first, then you want to be using your assassin abilities, take care of the ADC, taking them out, and then leaving the fight instantly. then going back in, taking out the next big threat, either the enemy jungler or the mid laner normally, getting rid of them, coming back, doing the exact same thing numerous times and just managing to survive in the fight. You're not meant to frontline as Kallari unless you are playing her as a tank. Or you're like 20 kills fed. That's the only other time you might want to be playing her as a frontline, because she can take on 5 people at once if she has 20 kills under her belt. But she normally doesn't. Now over here, I believe this was the main, the biggest point of me using the mechanic. Using it from a higher up wall, then doing the mechanic and double jumping straight after. You can see the insane distance that I traveled purely because of me using the mechanic and at a higher point than when I started. I think my guy does end up dying, but I do get the double kill here, so it's not as big of a deal. Gideon can't take me and I dodged his main rock, so he's already used ultimate, I'm pretty sure. Either way, he dies here and I end up getting a double kill. All because of me knowing how to use the mechanic. That mechanic is so broken if you know how to use it. Overall, just main things that I want to go over as a summary for the video. Make sure you know your pathing. You want a full clear as Kallari, make sure you have your power spikes, then go into ganks. Or going for a level 3 gank, that's the only other time you want to go in for a gank. You want to know your combos. Your combos are normally going in with starting with your Q, then your right click and spamming your auto attacks, and then finishing with your E or catching up with your E depending on if they used an escape. You can also go in with your alt, use your whole you go in with your alt, press right click, use your E, blah blah blah, and then you should also have your Q, so you can use your Q last, which is also very good. This is better late game. So weaknesses were mostly wards and anyone with a grab or stun, because obviously that takes her out of stealth. The solutions to this was playing rad poise or staying around your teammates late game. When to ult, you always want to ult late game on the enemy ADC when they're alone and just abuse them. You can also do the exact same thing to a mid laner if they are out of place and out of position, and because you know you beat them in a 1v1 unless they're incredibly fed. The best ganks that you can do are always ganks that you know you win, obviously. You don't want to go in for a gank when your team isn't there. You don't want to go in for a gank when you know the enemy is fed. You only want to go in for a gank when you know you win the fight. Make sure you abuse ADCs as a Kallari. That's the best piece of advice I can give you guys. And that is pretty much it. As you guys can see here, I do literally all I have to do is ult to the enemy, and I think I end up winning this as well. I'll leave it off over here. As you guys do see, that's how you abuse your ult on ADCs. You just want to keep spamming your ult as much as possible when they are alone or with a support that can't help them, like this Narbash. I'm pretty lucky here. The enemy Kallari should have just ulted me. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy this Kallari jungle guide. If you guys did, make sure you hit that like button down below. Comment down below what videos you want next. Which champion do you want me to show you next? I am going to be covering the jungle before I do anything else, as that is my main role. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button. Subscribe if you're brand new. And peace.